Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Chaucer's Books Virtual Author Discussion with teacher, author, and outdoors guru Dan McCaslin. My name is Michael Takeuchi, and I'm the events coordinator at Chaucer's Bookstore. Going on 47-year-old bookstore, independent bookstore located in Santa Barbara, California. To purchase tonight's book, browse other titles, or check out our upcoming events, please go to our website at chaucersbooks.com. Tomorrow, we are pleased to be in partnership with UCSB Arts and Lectures, speaking of which, where they will bring out Annette Gordon-Reed to talk about her book on Juneteenth. It's at 7:30 p.m. If you plan to go, please come by the Chaucer's booth to say hi. For our own events coming up, we have Wednesday on the 17th, to help us celebrate our 47th anniversary, we are pleased to bring in New York Times bestselling author Susan Orlean to come to the store. And she's going to be coming to talk about her book on animals, Wednesday, November 17th at 5 o'clock. So come on by, it's a free event. And if you want to know more, again, please check out our website at chaucersbooks.com. So while our guests and I are the only ones seen and heard on this webinar, please feel free to utilize the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. Tonight's event is being simulcasted on and recorded for our YouTube channel and will be available to view after program's completion. If you're watching on YouTube, please, if you have any questions, please type in the chat. Again, use the Q&A function for YouTubers and type in as we go along. And at the end, we hope to get to your questions. So I'm going to turn on the little recorder for Zoom. Okay. So tonight, I'm very, very pleased to welcome our dear friend at Chaucer's, Dan McCaslin, Dr. Dan McCaslin, I should say, because Dan is PhD. He's been roaming the Santa Barbara backcountry since the early 1970s. He's a former Mediterranean underwater archaeologist. Dan, you've never told me about that. But since then, he's led many student backpacking trips into our wildernesses for Crane School. And he also hikes into the interior performing service for the U.S. Forest Service, the PIP program. His backcountry trilogy summarizes over 200 outdoor columns in the Santa Barbara Independent and Santa Barbara News Talk. They are The Eternal Backcountry Return, Trails into Tomorrow, and tonight, his latest book, Autobiography in the Anthropocene. Please welcome Dan McCaslin. Hello, sir.
Hey, Mike. Good to see you. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Great.
It's great to see you without a mask, I should say first.
Yeah, I'm home. This is the advantage of the Zoom bit. Yes, very good.
That's great. And joining you tonight, of course, are two friends from Crane Country Day School, teachers. One is a current teacher, and that's Peter Glenn. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Mike. Nice to be here.
And former teacher Ryan Long. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello, thanks.
Okay, so before you talk amongst yourselves, I'm going to ask Peter and Ryan. Peter, you go first about how you know Dan and what his influence has been on you.
Sure, thank you. Well, I've known Dan probably for 15 years when I first started working at Crane, and we became fast friends. And I used to play a lot of tennis, and I think about 10 years ago, my knee just kind of couldn't handle the hard courts anymore. So I was looking for other things to do, and I started being interested in hiking and going in the outdoors, and that kind of helped cement our friendship with Dan. He really showed me the beauty of the backcountry and a lot of the front country trails. So in fact, we're planning on going on a big hike this Thursday. So it's been a really transformative experience to be a good friend of Dan's for me.
Blue Canyon.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow. Excellent choice. And Ryan, I should ask the same question. You were also a teacher. Now you're a private tutor. Your experience with Dan, and as a colleague as well as a friend in the outdoors.
Yeah, I met Dan at Crane kind of as he was ending his career as a school teacher, and I was beginning mine. And I was really enticed by his classroom space, which at the time was a 30-foot Pacific yurt in the back of Crane School, which really caught my eye. The first time I visited Crane and went there, I noticed this and was captivated by a teacher at the front of the room, the yurt, and all around him were students on pillows and low desks, kind of lounging and having that experience. So that was how I first got to know Dan, was as a colleague there. And then he invited me out to join him on a series of local hikes and some backpacking trips. And I've really enjoyed getting to know Dan over the last 6 years or so. So it's been a lot of fun.
Great. Hey, Dan, is the yurt still there?
That's a funny thing. When I left, they also got rid of the yurt. We went out together, and I could have stayed, but I would tell people I can no longer teach in rectangular or square buildings. I've just got to be round, sort of the eternity thing, eternal return.
There you go.
They sold it.
Okay. Well, they retired it when you retired. I think that's very appropriate.
The truth is, no one else wanted to work in there. It's really hot. Really hot.
Okay.
I'm serious. It was rough. I aged 20 years in that year.
So Peter, no math classes in there, Peter, right?
No math in the yurt. No.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna zoom out here. I'll still be online. Why don't you guys take it away?
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. So Dan, nice to see you. And talking a lot about your experience at Crane and all. Over 36 years, which is a remarkable career in one particular school. That's a very rare thing. I noticed that in your book that you had dedicated your book to your Crane students from 1980 to 2016. Tell us why you chose to dedicate your book to your students.
I thought about that because even before I came to Crane, I was a hiker. My father was a hiker. I grew up in LA, going to Angeles National Forest. And of course, it's sort of a selfish pursuit, really enjoy it, go with a couple of friends. But when I caught on at Crane, sort of the historic independent school, they had a long tradition of backpacking and they had vehicles. And so I stepped right into a place where there were resources and I got some support. And going with 6th graders and 7th graders and 8th graders, sometimes to Baja, Mexico, often to the High Sierra, the lower High Sierra for backpacks, observing the direct personal experience that these kids would have with simple things, with the dirt, with being out there, with skinned knee, with all the pluses and the minuses, that did kick into seeing how much humans need this and how much they like it. And many children did a little transformation thing back there. And some others hated it and years later would come and say, yeah, but with my girlfriend or with my boyfriend or now with my children, I realize there's something there that I can't get, even in a town as sweet as Santa Barbara. So the kids' joy transferred back and I relearned how to enjoy it again. Juvenescence is the big term, to become a little more with my juvenile side, a little more creative, a little more silly. It's good to be silly. We don't have enough time for idleness today for our children. They need more of that. So because they gave me a lot of joy and they just jumped on it.
And I think also you've created some long-lasting memories for them. They're never going to forget those experiences, both the skin knees and getting lost or whatever it was that made a real mark on them. You show them that they could be safe ultimately and really enjoy being out in the country.
We would have all these parents, sometimes rather worried about it. And I could show them almost as an algorithm that it's a lot safer going out here than when you drive them to LA or you go to Dodger Stadium or you do these other quite fun things. Those are much more lethal than my little stuff. Some poison oak, a broken finger, some adversity. Yeah, we can do that. That's, it's a sort of a controlled lab. And I got a lot of joy out of being around them as they discovered some of these things.
Wonderful. You brought up the term juvenescence, and I did have a question specifically on that. Could you kind of describe to us what that word means to you, and why it's important, particularly to our more seasoned viewers, why juvenescence is an important thing?
This comes from a book by Robert Pogue Harrison called Juvenescence, and he is a cultural critic, but he is trying to show that sometimes the cultural age that we grow up in may not fit our particular phases. So we're, as Edward Said says, we're in a late antique phase. We're in a rather degenerate phase, sorry to be negative. And children especially are affected by this, and also adults. So my idea is to do an eternal return to rediscover and reopen that juvenescent state. A lot of people are losing that. My old yoga teacher used to say, there are a lot of really young people who are already pretty old. And there are a few really old people who will always be young. And it's not just going, it's creativity, it's juvenescence. You can still find your, if you will, silly side, the belly laugh, get out there, take a few risks. We're afraid to take risks in this society a little bit. Everything is really worked out. So I'm using juvenescence as a metaphor to say an effort to get into the right side of the brain, reawaken the right hemisphere, be able to handle it, and be 74 years old and pretty darned excited about that Blue Canyon hike coming up.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get there. I will change when I'm out there on Thursday.
Dan, I think that there's some physiological aspects to juvenescence, like when you're out there and really getting the heart pumping and, climbing up a hill and seeing some beautiful scenery.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really kind of gets the brain cleansed and, the blood pumping. And I think that for me particularly, I think I almost start feeling a little giddy and silly just from being out there.
And the thoughts, I always carry my little notebook. The thoughts also are churning up, and you take a break. You write down a few magic phrases, or stuff that you will think about later and ponder maybe with the other parts of your brain. It's if you get the blood moving really fast, if I see the brain as a carburetor, then the blood is really moving through there quickly. And the older you are, the more tars and crap that's in there that will be swept out. And when you come home, your partner says, hey, you look like you've changed. You seem a little more relaxed, and you sleep better at night.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Going back to the book, tell me, you came up with the title Autobiography in the Anthropocene. Can you explain that a little bit for us, please?
Yes, I've traveled a lot in Germany, and in 2014, I was reading a lot of stuff over there about the Anthropocene. Today, an abused topic, a theme, but at that time, a really interesting word. And in the Anthropocene, it doesn't have to be negative, but we're looking at Earth's decline. And this idea that in the Anthropocene, it's not about the individual story anymore. I can run off to the woods, we all do these things, but it's the entire human species. So it's kind of a play on words there. There is no individual autobiography left in the Anthropocene. It's how we as an entire species choose to act. And, and so on and so on and so on. We know all this stuff. Can we unite? What about going on in, the COP26, and how much money will Biden give toward, climate restitution? It'll never be enough. The idea there is be less hung up on yourself and unite together. Say to work on saving the old growth forests on Reyes Peak, or other things where you can make a difference. Direct personal action.
Yeah, so, and I think you're alluding to, we can make a difference even locally. That if that happens,
absolutely,
throughout the country, then the collective benefit of that is significant.
A big event in my life was the big oil spill in 1969. I was there. I was helping pick up birds. That's Earth Day. It started, in Santa Barbara. It hit pretty hard. I hadn't thought of that before. There were all these dead birds, and so on and so. This is the Anthropocene, and we can change it.
Great. I reread my second reading of your book, and one of the chapters that really stood out to me that I really enjoyed is chapter F, entitled Solitaries, Hermits, and Backcountry Weirdos.
Yeah.
I presume the backcountry weirdos doesn't refer to you, of course.
Well, I can look pretty gnarly. Sometimes I wear an eye patch and
Yeah.
yeah, no
But
weapon.
there was one particular character that really fascinated me because, eponymously named the Davy Brown Campground.
Right.
But I think, I don't know how much of the stories of Davy Brown are true or not, but he's a fascinating character. Tell us a little bit more about him. And he's from our own backcountry. So he's somebody
Yeah.
that,
He died,
we've hiked where he lived, and so forth. Tell
he
us a little
died
bit about him.
yeah, he died in Guadalupe, right here in 1898. He was a real character. He was a cabin boy on a ship in the War of 1812. He lived to almost be 100. And so then there's some mythological stuff, but he definitely rode with Kit Carson. He was an incredible bear hunter. So we might not celebrate this today, but he was a bear killer. He shot a lot of bears. There's a report, 1886, Calaveras County, where Mark Twain had the jumping frogs. He killed 11 grizzly bears in 1 week, but he ends up in the Santa Barbara backcountry. And this is Davy Brown Camp. And imagine he lived there until he was 98. And it had to be fairly rough. And he had 2 mules and a little lean-to. And we just always imagine, good old Davy Brown back there living off the grid. And there are a couple pictures. Some cowboy friends would bring him some food a few times a year, but he shot a lot of deer and little ones, and he would, hang them up. And there were a lot of fish at that time. Can't fish there now. And he made it somehow. His life story parallels, from an Anglo perspective, the settler pioneer narrative who falls in love with the deep backcountry and lives there till he's 98 years old. One guy helped him out.
That's remarkable.
And there are songs about Davy Brown. I've written a couple myself. Yes.
Thank you. That's he's a fascinating character.
Inspiring guy. Yeah.
Along those lines,
Davy Brown.
I forget which chapter, but you talk about how many of the great characters in Western history experienced lengthy periods of solitude, engendered silence. Quoting you, in the wilderness. How do you think this solo time, helped shape them? And then after that, I'm interested in how that helped shape you. This idea of spending time by yourself in the wilderness seems to be highly correlated with some of these really famous figures of the past.
John the Baptist, 40 days in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Jesus had to go back into the wilderness. Prince Rama had to spend 14 years in the wilderness. There's something about Sir Lancelot, 4 times exiled to the wilderness because of all his lust for Guinevere. So you go to these places and you can sort of come to yourself, or you look in the stream and you start figuring out who really are you? Where am I in all of this? And it's really tough when all the people are around. Now, the trick with that is to come out of it. Some people go there, well, they never come back. There really are some strange people back there. I've never been threatened, it's not a problem, but maybe it's a good thing they're back there. Have you thought of this? Like that's where they need to be, and their friends resupply them, and they're doing all right. Maybe that's better than a mental hospital. Maybe that's better than some forms of treatment. I think all humans need some periods of relative solitude. I think in the modern world, everyone has this thought. Internet, almost 8 billion people, very hard to find those. We have to really work hard to carve it out. And you can feel selfish, or your partner says, what the heck? I go off a lot by myself, and I have to caution viewers, it's not great to go backpacking by yourself. I've done a lot of it. It was enormous fun. And I don't have a cell phone. I have no emergency beacon. The best part of that is you are actually there. Not too far, 15 miles, 18 miles, 20 miles. I mean, you could crawl out if you had to. Solitude is, we're alone together all the time now. We've always got the phone. We've always got an access point. There's always, we can be here. Oh, I know, I'm in my room, but I'm talking to you guys. And how ironic, because it's all about direct experience out in the real 3-dimensional world, or it's a type of reality. I think we're afraid of solitude. I think Thomas Merton, many of the greats would say, picking away 2 hours by yourself, go up Rattlesnake Canyon for an hour and a half, just sit there. A lot of stuff happens. I know, Ryan, you think that, you can really start to hear differently. You start to perceive differently. The smells change.
Yeah, one thing that I've taken your advice and gone solo backpacking myself, and one thing that I notice is that it's like time slows down. You feel like you can just watch a bird for 5 minutes, or just not even think of anything for a while. I think it really settles you. And when we're in society, we've got so many interrupts with cell phones and phone calls and emails, that there's really little time. We feel like there's little time where we can really just not worry about interruption and just focus on the little things that actually are quite meaningful.
It is the interruption society. Jerome Lanier talks about everything is so, the internet does this. Everything is presentation. Everything is optimization. It's always like you're optimizing yourself. You're always optimizing yourself. What if you do this all the time? Then you're out in the woods, or you're in a position where it doesn't work out. It can be really a sense of dislocation and a difficulty. So we should, practice both. Be able to, do both. Go over here and do this, and go over here and do that. And it should be fairly seamless.
The San Rafael Wilderness is featured in your book, in many places, rightly so. But why is this such a special place, and and why should we go? What would you tell somebody that's thinking about going there? Why should we go? What's so special about it?
The picture in the front of the book is from the San Rafael Wilderness. Horace Greeley said, "Go west, young man." But if we're here in Santa Barbara, if we want to find true wilderness, we have to go east. We go east into this. It's a really desolate, if you will, terrain under 15 inches a year of rain. It's mostly chaparral and a little bit of a conifer forest thing. Even the indigenous peoples had very few villages back there. This is a place that you cross over. You would have rites and symbols of passage. You would have certain ceremonies, naming things up on the hurricane deck. So the San Rafael Wilderness, 250,000 acres, has 3 others around it. So it's around 500,000 acres of these various wildernesses. A federal wilderness means no machines, no mountain bikes, no chainsaws, horses, yes, and you're supposed to do everything on foot. It's wild and wonderful. It actually was never civilized, quote, civilized. It was never, we never found enough minerals there to take it over. We didn't find enough reasons. There's not oil there. They tried. It's a place of mystery and magic. And in the middle of the San Rafael Wilderness is this 17-mile long sandstone ridge called the Hurricane Deck. And just like Uluru in Australia, on the Hurricane Deck, you have sacred caves with painted rock art. You have bedrock mortars. You have springs in the oddest places. You have cupules on boulders that they carved. And you have, occasional living sites. Kind of spooky, really cool. And you basically follow the 2 or 3 river valleys, the Sisquoc, the Manzana, Santa Cruz Creek. You go in and then you come back out. It's quite a lovely, lovely place and remote.
One thing I marvel at, when we use our GPS out there, is that I have my home, the coordinates of my home, and we're out there and seemingly in the middle of nowhere, and looking, that's like, my house is like 22 miles as a crow flies from here. And sometimes that's almost hard to comprehend, that we're in such a seemingly remote, almost otherworldly place. And it's actually not really that far as a crow flies from Goleta or Santa Barbara, for example. So I think we're very fortunate that we're so close to such a fantastic, like, as you said, 3 wilderness areas, 500,000 acres that are basically in our backyard.
It's really, it's pristine. It hasn't been wrecked. It's also ruthless. It's rough. There's, I've gotten to the point where I don't even want to carry maps anymore. I've done it enough that, I have some problems with maps in the sense of very linear and make you think you're a place, but you're not in the place. Where you are is the direct personal knowledge of where you're sitting right there. Ryan, you know that feeling. It's just coming over you that this piece of paper doesn't begin to, it's a name, and that's not even the name that the original people had for that place. I know a few of the Chumash names, but even before that, someone else called it something else. There are, for example, Blue Canyon, where we're going on Thursday, it feels really desolate. There's a little tiny creek there. I've seen bears there. I've seen condors overhead. It's 4 miles from the upper village of Montecito. It's 4 miles. You would never dream it was 4 miles. I've invented a term in all my books, adjacency, where you have civilization, urban, Montecito, my little west side, and then 3 miles away, hey, it's actually quite wild. Not like maybe 100 years ago, but wow, you can get away from everything. Crawl under a bush and take a nap. And just, 1 hour's worth 10 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. Oh, sorry. Tell us a little bit about, you have some really wonderful photographs in your book on pictographs and petroglyphs that you've gathered over the years. Many of our viewers may not be familiar with what pictographs and petroglyphs are, what the differences between them. Can you tell us a little bit about them, and also where could we go and see them? If somebody was interested in actually seeing one in person, what are some places that they could actually go and observe them? So first of all, could you tell us a little bit about what a pictograph and a petroglyph is and what the differences are, and then where could you see them if you wanted to?
The composite term is rock art, and in rock art we have the petroglyphs, where people carve and incise directly into the rock, or they paint it. Here's a painted pictograph. They tended to do these in the more remote locations. So we have some big town sites along the coast of the Chumash, and there is some rock art there, but a lot of it is scattered in this very desolate backcountry. Hard to find over the hundreds of years. But most Chumash don't know where these places are. They've been overgrown, they've been lost, they're not. I have found some. I'm just packing around, and you crawl into a thing like there's this painted bird there, or more often it's geometric. It would be a star or something. For viewers, I would go up 154 to Painted Cave State Park, and pull off on Painted Cave Road, and this one has a barricade, and see it in there. I would also go on the internet. Indigenous peoples aren't terribly pleased if all kinds of people go to all these places. So there are many more than we realize. They keep turning up. People keep calling the Forest Service, and they found another one over there. Imagine how many there were over 12,000 years of occupancy. And then there's an enormous literature, lots of debates on what was the real purpose of them, exactly what did they do there, how much datura or Jimson weed were they on, which is not a very nice question. I think that they're coming from the inside of the brain, especially the geometric one. So I've invented in the books a whole theory of art based on the Chumash and the rock art images that we have here. It's pretty exciting. That's in the book. Every one of those pictures in there, I crawled into that cave and I took that photograph. It's also non-portable art. So, a picture doesn't really do they're in the book, but that doesn't do the full scale thing. There's a cave over in San Emigdiano called Pinwheel Cave, where they've discovered 40 or 50 quids of datura. So certainly at least some of the rock art is associated with this hallucinogen that might have been taken, or certainly was taken. So they've now discovered it in yet another cave. All it means is cultures around the earth have used whatever is at hand to get them going. Read Michael Pollan. That's what's happening in our culture today. Have your little pop of whatever. I don't recommend that, but the world is rugged and demanding. We need some way out, and we need forms of expression. I go into a lot of those. The designs are fabulous. People really fall in love with these designs. They're not all figural. Some of them are, I love this term, they're composite, they're hybrid creatures. They never existed in the world. You know, it's this man beast with, you know, like the chimera or the Scylla and Charybdis. Humans do this all over the earth, you know, and they do it in their own way. And they're trying to find their way out of the cave of the mind into the cave of reality and build a way of life and still take their kids back there and have naming ceremonies, puberty rites, death rites. Ryan, you've gone to some of those caves, right? Crawled in there.
Mhm.
The variety of images is quite astounding. I'm gonna show one.
While you're looking for that, Dan, one thing that you talked to me about that's really interesting is that you might find a rock that looks like a possible candidate. Yeah, that's a good one.
This is a human-handed insect
Yeah.
beneath a large bird. The bird is the one here, and the top is the datura flower, and
Yes.
at the bottom you see it has this is a misdrawing. There's supposed to be 4 here, so it's not a bird either. So it's not a bird and it's not an insect. It's something that someone imagined, and maybe it's illuminating or terrifying. Who knows?
Yeah.
People have
That's
enough fun interpreting.
I like that shirt, by the way.
Yeah, I love it. That's from a place called Indian Cave. Very hard to get there.
Yeah.
Very hard to get there. I didn't make it. Some other people made it, but I flogged out, you know. I had to sit on the trail for a few hours.
One thing that you mentioned to me is that, you know, you may look under, you know, an area that looks like a potential candidate for a pictograph, but you may not see anything. And then you've taken photos and actually been able, like the naked eye doesn't necessarily see the detail, but when you photograph it and maybe work with a tool to kind of, you know, change the color or the resolution, all of a sudden some remarkable pictograph just pops out. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't have an iPhone, but my friends who do, you have this $20 application called D-Stretch, and you can take the picture and then you can run it through D-Stretch and it will pick out the little glints, microscopic amounts of the paint that are there, and you get an idea of the design. The designs are quite arresting, really astounding.
Nice.
The variety.
There was something I wanted to, you went on you have a chapter where you talk about a solo journey when you went into the wilderness. I think it was like a 5-day journey.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrote about eating your, one thing that struck me was you wrote about eating your evening meal. And I quote from your book, "My attention was on the ground. I shoveled food into my moving maw, and the cold seeped into my emotions as well as my physical bones." Tell us why you felt this way after your solo journey. You seemed quite emotional, you know, almost drained after this journey, both physically and emotionally. I want to understand. I think we want to understand more about why that is.
It got me pretty worked up. That was a 7-day solo, and I went up through Manzana Narrows and to a place called Happy Hunting Ground and White Ledge. One night there was a hailstorm, and I'm asleep in the tent, and I heard an unbelievable sound, you know, Armageddon or something, an unbelievable sound in the distance, and it was coming toward me. I was a little bit afraid, you know, I mean, I didn't know what it was. It hadn't seemed like it was going to rain. It was nighttime. I had a good tent, and then it came and beat the heck out of the tent, and there were little pellets of hail outside, and then it moved on down the canyon, and I heard it, you know, departing. I think this intensifies everything. I think it helps your vision. I think it helps your hearing. I think it helps your sense of smell. You're right in the moment. We have a problem in this society with direct perception of events. Everything has got layers, if you will, a screen, layers between us and what's really happening. Children notice this the most. You know, you take children and they know how to be, and they go to school and you teach them how to do. And then when they're 40 years old, they're doing so much. They have to go to a shaman or a shrink or a rabbi in order to come back to being and figuring out a little bit, oh, where am I in all this morass? Our society is very confusing. If you're 12 years old, it's really confusing. If you're 36 years old, it's very confusing. I'm not even going to go into politics, but I could.
No.
Right? Stop, you know. And also back there is a respite. So I think food tastes better. I think food seems to taste better.
Yeah.
And when I'm back, I really simplify my diet. You don't need much. Tea, a boiled foil meal. My big drug is coffee. You know, I have coffee and tea. Oh, the cup of coffee in the morning, instant via with a teeny bit of sugar in it. Oh my gosh, that can hold you up for like 2 hours. You're just feeling, you know, the story about Thomas Merton. He didn't talk or have any extra stuff in all these years, and afterward, when he talked a lot about it, he said, "Yeah, you know what it was really about? Every Sunday, I got a half cup of tea with a little bit of sugar in it. I spent the entire week waiting to get to my half cup of tea." So you go, well, that's what we do to ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Going back, you know, the simplicity of being out there, you know, the simple things mean so much. And I think that's why I enjoy going back there. You know, the backcountry is that, you know, just having a warm sleeping bag, or, you know, having a nice cup of tea, or just the sounds you hear. I mean, it really is transformative experience when you're out there.
In some of the chapters, I have a little box about what I had on this backpack, and it's supposed to be as little as possible. And the most successful is, like, say it's cold, you're wearing everything. You now are using everything you had, and it's just enough. You're fine. You don't need more. And you feel, and if you're minus something, well, then you can suffer a little bit, and you'll remember next time. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
suffer is the wrong word. You'll have a privation. Our society doesn't honor privation or idleness or juvenescence enough. We're all pretty afraid. We're all pretty afraid. You know. Ryan, do you agree about that? That, you know, there's a sort of omnipresent thing in the big world here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dan, and you talk about, well, I learned quite a bit about the pre-colonization Chumash people from your book. And I was particularly intrigued about Iwahinmu, Mount Pinos, which I was fortunate to go with you and our friend Chris a year or two ago, as being the center of the cosmos.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how the Chumash people interpret, at least the pre-colonization Chumash people interpret the universe? Yeah, and you have at the back of your book, you do have a drawing of that.
This is the middle world. You can see the islands. So in common with a number of Western North America indigenous groupings, they would see the cosmos as 3 balls on an axis. Sometimes it's 5, and in the middle, we're in that one, almost like Tolkien and Middle Earth. You know, it's the middle ball, Hutas.
Yeah.
Speak Chumash, so that's one way to Hutas. And on Hutas are the remnants of the first people, and they have become boulders or sentient boulders or certain meadows. I know where a lot of those meadows are, and you can be there, and if you sleep there, you do feel something. And some of my Chumash friends have helped me understand that you don't have to be in the cave with the pictograph. You don't have to do the datura. You don't have to do any of that. You're just in the area, barefooted, letting it come in enjoying it. It really opens you up. You know, like your mind has a lot of questions. You're instead of, you know, I've been a teacher a long time. Instead of outputting, you're inputting. You're letting it come in. You're letting your mind lie fallow. The mind is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Overtrained. You know, I went to college for 10 years. I'm still getting over it. It was a long haul. I had a good time, but I love college. But, you know, you get into this linear Western sort of groove that we're all struggling with, I think. Yeah. I don't think I answered the question.
Dan, what would you recommend to someone who wants to get out there and have that kind of experience, that wants to, you know, maybe step out of the middle world a little bit and move into the wilderness, but maybe doesn't have the context that you might have for those experiences? What would you recommend to them?
Well, I could say buy my book, but I would find someone who has some experience and spend a little money on gear and start moderately by going up Rattlesnake Canyon, locally here, Jesucita Trail, and then quickly, after a little bit, have the right boots with somebody who knows, drive over San Marcos Pass and head up to one of several places. You can go behind Ojai, you can go to Matilaha down by Ventura. There's Reyes Peak behind Ojai. There are a lot of places to go. Go to a place where there's water, and make it easy on yourself at the beginning. I know too many people, forgive me, Boy Scouts, who make it a gnarly kind of, we've got to get to the next camp, and then we got to get to the next camp. I've done that, but it's so much better. You go 3 to 5 miles at your appropriate pace, or the pace of the person with you, and you have some chocolate, you have some decent food, not great food, and receive. In the old days, we would say pray. You receive, you're open. You don't have a lot of preconceptions. Be sure you have a good time, good food, snacks. This is the kind of stuff I would say with kids. I'm past this, privation thing, that it needs to be suffering. That's the Western Joseph Campbell myth of the hero's journey, which I like too, but the hero's journey doesn't have to be, full of the cane brake and the Toronado woman, stinging you to death or throwing you off the Rainbow Bridge. It can be a take your kids. Peter, or Ryan, I would say, go with children. They'll teach you. I want to go with my 8-year-old grandsons when they come over, and I just follow them around. They know what to do. We have to figure out what to do. They know what to do. They're going to get down on the water and have a good time, and they're going to be tired, and I'll give them some food, and we'll sleep, and we'll sing some songs. Yeah, dance a little. Right? Davy Brown, that guy, he drank plenty of alcohol. Plenty of guys back there smoking weed, doing alcohol, but plenty of people just letting it happen to them, and not a program. Really hard now to not have a program. If you don't have a startup, if you don't have a program, if you're not, up on the apps, well, I spend so much time with people who they want to talk about their iPhones and the latest iPhone thing. I have the greatest time. I go, hey, I've never had an iPhone. I'm an iPhone virgin. I haven't been, my partner doesn't trust me with an iPhone. I'm not allowed to have one. I'm so lucky, right? And I have friends, not very many, but they're real friends, like these guys here. Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, you had some questions for Dana on shamanism. It'd probably be a good time for you to bring those up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I would love to ask you, Dan, a little bit about how or what the relevance of shamanism is to modern people. You mentioned a lot in the book about these stories of Chumash shamans and sort of the native people of this area, and kind of referring out to others and their experiences with non-ordinary reality. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how that can connect to people of today.
Great. I connect that a lot to the idea of animism. I regard animism as kind of the pre-religion behind all of the later Western, capital R, developed religions, say after about 4000 BC. In animism, you really are absolutely certain there's life everywhere. The boulders, the dirt, all this is happening. The shamans would help us interpret that. The shamans would be the ones doing the transmorphic art. The shamans are the ones who can go to a different place through cracks in the rock with bits of shattered quartz, wind in the trees, and come back and have a gift, a solution, or maybe it's a line of bullshit, In other words, they're saying we now need to move to the next hunting ground. We need to move to the lower ground because winter is coming on. Shamans help us deal with parts of reality that are not death. It's all about transformation, death, puberty, a woman's body, a young boy's body that's changing. They can't help it. You know, it's kind of frightening. You need ceremonies to help you, to walk you through it. I think that shamans kind of got a bad rap when the organized religions took over. And I can only think of Christianity, where, you know, these were the medicine men and the medicine women, and they, you know, they're pagans. The padres and others were jealous of them because they too could touch another reality. Now, look, people, I believe there are other realities. I believe there are other horizons. So does Stephen Hawking, the multiverse. I think the shamans of old already knew that. And it was dangerous to be a shaman. You weren't rich. In the book by Edward Daybreak, one of the Pueblo Indians, it's a big published thing. His father was a shaman. His life was rough. He got paid in, you know, in food, and when things didn't work out, he got a lot of blame. So shaman's hard work. And a lot of people might have gotten an Itishwin, a spirit helper, but they could have gotten several more and worked into the shaman area. They chose not. The Shumash always talk about shamans are beyond good and evil. They can compete and they can hurt you. They can get you. This would be an explanation for evil, wouldn't it? You know, that something bad happened to you, Ryan. It's because, you know, I was jealous of you and I went to a shaman and I got him to, you know, if you will, put some kind of thing on you. You need to go to your shaman or use your Atishwin spirit helper or your powers to hold off the illness. I don't think it's mumbo jumbo. I think that that's a form of wisdom that we somewhat have lost track of. And in a way, it's coming back. There are still shamans. Most of them call themselves therapists or rabbis or leaders of student groups or certain kinds of teachers. Ryan, do you think there's still shamans out there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's still, you know, many people practicing, you know, even ones that might not call themselves shaman or, you know,
That's right.
a shaman, but they might say I'm a shamanic practitioner, or they're at least studying it and, you know, understand some of those practices.
Mm-hmm. It's a huge topic. You know a lot about it. I know that. Among the Shumash, the bear shamans are very, very powerful. There are many stories about the bear shamans. We have some of those legends. I had an experience at one place where I really think, you know, I got some kind of healing from this bear shaman guy who wasn't even trying to heal me. He was trying to heal another guy. And if this seems really way out there, this stuff is way out there. We have problems with a very narrow definition of reality today. It comes out of the Enlightenment, and it's won us many gifts and has given us a certain kind of prison that we're struggling to break out of, like to honor the mother and to fix the planet and to bear witness to what we're doing.
Very
Don't
good.
cut down the trees on Reyes Peak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I think we're probably getting, Dan, we're probably getting close to the end. Maybe we could give folks a minute or so if anyone wanted to send over any questions.
sure. Yeah.
Let me check to see. We might have one. Let me see. Oh, we have a question from Hans Runschild. Can Dan explain how nature is the opposite of time?
Oh boy, how nature is the opposite of time. A lot of definitions of time involve a linear definition. If we go back to the ancient Greeks, Thucydides, some of them, time was circular, has more of an eternal character. I like this line where Emerson says, the whole of nature is simply a metaphor of our own mind. Give me Hans's question one more time.
Certainly. He says, can Dan explain how nature is the opposite of time?
I'm not sure that nature is the opposite of time, but I think nature is beyond time, or nature is beyond linear time, which by definition, you know, has sort of a beginning and end point where it's constantly expanding. I think nature is a metaphor for us, and we can't begin to comprehend it. We have to try to comprehend it through shamanic practices, art, ecstatic dancing. Nature in this way is opposed to the common definition of time. That's where you get somebody like Davy Brown. He was 97. He was living well. You know, he was like Dennis Hopper in that movie, you know, doing his own thing in his own time, defying time. I'm 74. I'm trying to defy time, and it's tough. Time is, the linear part is real at the same time. Hans, that's a great question. It's a little tough for me. I'd have to write on that one. We got more. We have one more question.
I think it's Hans is following up. I think he's indicating that on page 47. Yeah, I think you probably discussed this particular topic that
Okay.
he's asking about.
Yeah, I think I talk about beyond becoming, in it's like we're in the dream world part of the time. My mother-in-law is 97. She has her brain, but she's not distinguishing very much between when my partner and I come in the room, and then she starts talking about people who are no longer alive, and then she comes back and is talking with us, and she's beyond time in that sense. She's not there, and she's all right. I think we've lost this sense of eternity. And instead, time is chopped up. This is Descartes, time and space. I should look up page 47 and see what I wrote. Good questions, Hans.
We have a question from Lisa Moore. What is your favorite local hike that you enjoy?
Hi, Lisa. I remember you. How's Colby? Let's see. My favorite local hike. This is sort of my standard workout because it's fairly close to my house. I drive 10 minutes. I'm at Schofield Park at Rattlesnake Canyon. And the good thing about that is you can go to the meadow, 1.7 miles. You can go up to East Camino Cielo. You can keep on going. So it's got this open-ended impact. And after about 2 miles, the meadow splits. You can go down and bathe in the creek. I avoid weekends. There are a lot of people, but that's my go-to. That's the one I do when I'm not driving to the backcountry or something.
How about maybe a secondary one, maybe one that maybe is a little bit farther, but still reasonable for somebody to enjoy on any given day, let's say.
Okay, well, I like the Blue Canyon thing. You drive to the top of Gibraltar Road, East Camino Cielo. You turn right. You drive to the end of the dirt. It's barred, and you walk down this dirt road a little bit, and then it's well signed. You go down the Romero Canyon Trail, and you're in Blue Canyon. It's about 4 miles, and then you come all the way back up to East Camino Cielo. You have to have 2 cars or drop a bike. That one's far fewer people, and it's quite wild. It's quite wild. You will see condors, you will see bears, you will see all kinds of animals. There are fish in the creek. No fishing, no hunting, and it's that incredible thing. You're so close to town, you're so far away. I want to go back to Hans's question. Modern technology, we're moving away from the earth. We're going so fast. We're moving away from the earth. We have lost a sense of normal time. I think people are very confused about chronology and what's going on. And even, I'm an old guy in a late antique period. Maybe I'm a young guy in an early period. We have to put these together to find our juvenescence, to be happy. After all, we want to be happy. I want to push it.
Okay, I think that was our final question for this evening. And Dan, really enjoyed chatting with you and Ryan. And just wanted to remind everybody that Autobiography in the Anthropocene is available at Chaucer's. And I've read it a couple times and been quite fascinated by it. And thank you for having me on board, Dan. I enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Peter. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And please buy Dan's books, and we hope you have a nice evening. Thank you.